going to be doing a very easy vintage project today. It's this McCall's wrap apron style topper dress. I will be using it as an apron. I'm going to put some pictures up for you because this style has been around for a while. It's back, it's popular. I do not know where I got this pattern. You can still get it out there. You can order it on Etsy. Amazon had it. There's one in Vogue. There's one in Simplicity. There's one in McCall's. One that I want to get that's a PDF that's very similar, but it has elastic. It could be really worn more as a dress because it has some shaping in it that's very cute. It's this one here. So I may be ordering that. I'm thinking about doing it for one of my daughters. I went shopping in my stash today, and I have this adorable, I don't know what you call it, cornflower blue polka dot. It's just a plain cotton. And I'm going to be lining my pockets with this. I bought this as a potential for the Vogue dress that I did. This one that I just love that dress. Okay, we are having storms for July, which is very odd for us. It's super overcast, even though it's early morning here. Anyway, I bought this as a potential for some of the trim for that. I have not used it. I have quite a bit. So I'm going to use this as an accent piece. It's going to be inside the pocket. I'm going to show you a couple fun variations. This is one of those where the sewing is very simple, but you could do a lot as far as design. You could embroider on it, you could do patches, you could do color blocking. There's so many fun things. So I will discuss that as we're working on it. I've traced off my pattern. This particular one, the back shows sizing up to 20. It's done as an extra small through a large. I just cut out the large. I did do a small pattern alteration on the side because of the way this pattern goes together. You can see it's very straight, and it does have side seams. It wraps around in the back, and I want to make sure, because I am smaller on top and fuller on the hip, that when it hits the hip and it goes to wrap, it can actually pull apart in the back or separate if it's not full enough. So I've added just a tiny bit of fullness. It also makes it hang a little nicer. So I've added a little bit to the side seam, and I'll show you that below the waist, just to give it's insurance for me. So I've done all that. I've traced my pattern off because it has all sizes in it, and I could see making this again for a smaller person in my life. So I want to preserve my pattern pieces and my sizes. This is a pattern that, instead of doing the little micro hemming all the way around it, you could bias bind this, and it would be very cute. I was considering making some bias out of this and trimming it. I think in the end I'm going to go ahead and just do it according to the pattern. Let's go ahead and lay out and cut. These are cottons. If you're working with a cotton, it's best to pre-treat that, which means finish the raw edge, run them through the washer and the dryer like you're going to treat it when it's done. I will not be wearing this as a top. I'm going to be wearing this as an apron, but aprons get washed a lot. Let's get cutting. You don't need any interfacing for this. Should be very fast. It says 2 hours, and I have a feeling the thing that makes it last longer than 2 hours is how long it takes you to fold everything over and hem the edge, because the sewing part is going to go really quick. I am going to do a tiny bit of serging on this one, but you could completely use bias if you wanted to. I think I'll go ahead and cut my pockets real quick and just get this fabric out of the way. I pressed one end. This is Fabric Traditions. That's where this one came from. And this one is called Counting 2 by 2 by Patty Reed Designs. Both of these are Fabric Traditions fabrics. So if you want to find these same fabrics, that's what the brand is. All right, let's get us a cutout. Put down in the comments what you guys are listening to while you're sewing. 2 of these, and I'm going to fold my fabric the other way to get that. This one has to be on the fold. This is my center front. Here I have added just a tiny bit, and you can see it here on the center front. Here's my little neck strap. So we're going to cut those, and then I'm going to flip the fabric and fold it the other way. You cannot fold your fabric that way if it's directional. Mine is not directional, so I don't have to worry about that. But if you have directional fabric, will not work. Okay, so this is where I have added to the side seam. Here's my dart, and I measured up from the hem, and I did this for both pieces. So you can see in the front here, I've added about 1.25 inches, and I've eased it back into right at the waist. Right here's where the little opening will be for the ties at the side. So that's where I've started it, right below that opening, and I did the same thing on the back. So here you can see my little marks for where the opening is. This is where the side seam started to go down, and you can see I made it a little more dramatic. I am also fuller in the back. So these are my side seam pieces. If I had not done this, it would have been about like that on the side. It still would not fit on 45 wide fabric, and I still would have to fold it differently. And you can see because my pattern paper is narrow, I had to add a piece just to get the whole pattern to fit. But that's how it looks traced off. Let's get cutting. So I have my front and my pocket here. I'm going to go ahead and get those cut out. I'm going to refold real quick and then cut out the back and see where I want to place my my ties. I always lengthen my tie a little bit. If you want to make these really cute little weights, I have a video on it. It's not my original design. I just saw people making weights and thought, that's easy to do. I can figure that out. So I do have a quick little video if you want to make your own pattern weights. Mine have rice in them. You can use all kinds of things for the inside. I used rice because I had it on hand and it's cheap. Now this fabric is not directional and does not have a nap, so I can refold it like this. So I have this strip down here I can get my straps out of easily, and then I still have a big piece left over that I can put into my large scraps pile for future use. You could totally shape this side seam. I made mine straight, but if you feel like if you have a real high full hip, you could easily shape this like your hip line and have a little bit better fit. Perfect. And then this strap could easily come out up here or over here. I just need one. They don't have us interfacing any of this. If you want to interface it, you can. If you find that neck straps like this are too big for you, you can size it down, or you can put an elastic inside it and make it stretchy, which it also would make it comfy. Okay, we're all cut out. Let's head over to the sewing machine. Okay, I am going to be serging side seams only because it is a pressed open side seam with a little hole for us to feed through our ties. So I'm going to serge those areas, just as a little heads up, and I'm going to serge it in white. Could go either way. I am going to do all my top stitching in the blue. We're going to transfer, if you want to do notches, that sort of thing, where the pockets are going to go, and we need to transfer where the little opening is on the side seam. So those are the really important ones. There's also, I think, a marking up here for the strap, potentially. I'll have to go back and look at it, but I think there is. All right, let's get our markings transferred. I think this one is the 1980s version of this pattern, 1983. Okay, so this is a single page of directions. It has all of the ways to cut it out. Transfer the markings for darts, for pockets, and for side openings. We'll put in our darts. It has us do darts and then pockets, but I'm just telling you, I always do the pockets first. I usually do pockets and make all the straps first, and then I can just sit and assemble. That's just personal preference. You can do it either way, but that's what I'm going to do today. I'm going to go ahead and make my strap, make my pockets, put in my darts, we will assemble. So here's one of my pocket pieces. Now this pocket has a fold over at the top, but you could easily, because we're going to line this, that is the choice I'm making. So I'm going to have these, the inside of my pocket's going to have this floral. Now you could have an accent pocket, but because I'm doing that, you could have a pocket with an accent trim like this. You can see how that looks. So that's certainly an option if you would like a little edge like that. You could also tuck in a lace in there. You could do a lot of fun little accents. So I'm going to start by just transferring markings. Okay, we're going to transfer our markings. And to do this, I take a pen. You can use a pencil, you can use chalk. This is a dart, so I'm gonna go right in the center of my dart, and this is the right side of my fabric. And I will open my fabric up because I want my darts markings on the inside. So I'm going to open my fabric up, and I can see the pin where it comes out for that, and I'm going to put a little tiny mark. Let me use a color that shows up better for you guys. How about red? I often use mechanical pencil. So there's my dart point, and then you can do as many as you need to get your shape. So you can see how shaped this dart is, the shaping. So I can come down and do it again. I'm going to put pins where I want there to be a mark for shaping reasons, and then I can open this up. I can see both pins, and I can mark, get the wrinkle out, mark right where the pin's coming out on both sides. And I just keep going down. Now this is if I want it for the inside. Now the pocket on this, I need the pocket markings on the right side of the fabric. So I'm gonna come down here to my pocket, and these are my little pocket markings. I'm gonna make them a little stronger so you can see them, see my pocket markings. I'm going to do the same thing. Now this time I'm not gonna mark it in red because this is gonna be on the right side. And I do not want this, I don't want to have to wash my garment before I can wear it. But I'm going to put a pin in those markings, and I'm going to use a mechanical pencil this time. This is my preferred for things like this, and I can just pull back the pattern. I can see where my pencil is coming out, and I'm going to put a teeny, or my pin is coming out. I'm going to put a teeny tiny mark there, and then I can flip all the way to the back and do the same thing. So my markings will be on the right side, but very hard to see with it for somebody like when I go to wear it. I'm going to do that for all of the markings that are going to be on the right side. So on the wrong side, I'm not as concerned about using something as long as it doesn't bleed through. But on the right side, I'm very cautious. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and mark my dart ends. Whoops, I've been sliding around too much. Moved my pieces. You can even, on these dart ends, you could actually even do a tiny little clip if you wanted to. That's another option. And we have everything marked. Okay, here's the pocket. I am going to do the little fold over so I have the accent showing on the outside. So I'm just going to start at the bottom. It's literally the same, the top or the bottom. And there's 5/8 inch seam allowance on everything. I'm going to leave a little hole at the bottom for turning through. So you can see I'm kind of starting in the middle of the bottom of my pocket. I'm going to start here, I'm going to back stitch, do a pocket. So we're going to sew our 5/8 inch, do a little back stitch, sink in our corner, rotate, and we're just going to go all the way around like this, and there'll be a little hole right here in the bottom that will turn through. Now, if you don't want your, you have to have a little pocket flap that shows, you can turn it to the inside, or you can trim off that excess and have, to get rid of the pocket hem edge that's deeper. You can see I'm just sinking and pivoting when I hit those corners. Sink my needle and pivot. I have a knee lifter, but you may need to raise your presser foot from behind. All right, and there's our pocket. Okay, I have two pockets. I'm going to come in and trim these corners so I can turn them and have nice sharp corners. So I'm going to just trim those off near the stitching line all the way around. So you can see how I have Lost all my corners. I'm actually gonna flip it over. It's easier to see it on the polka dot side than the floral side. And this just helps get a nice sharp corner when we go to press it. So now that I've done all of that, go through that little hole that we left in the bottom. We're gonna flip it around. I always put my thumb or my finger in the corners and start there so I can kind of get my corners started nice and sharp. And this will give us our lined pocket. Now you could totally line this in the self fabric. You don't have to do an accent like I did. You could stick a lace in one edge if you'd like a lace edge, or piping would be very cute in this. I'm going to get my little point thing here and gently go in that corner and poke out the corners. And now that I've done that, I'm going to give this a press, and then this is the side that's going to be the outside, and I'm going to fold over the top so you can see that little cute edge. Now if I wanted to, I could fold that to the inside, and that would be the inside of my pocket. So you could do it either way. Or I could make this the outside with just the polka dot edge. You have options. So let's get both of these turned and pressed. And then we will go ahead and I'm going to go ahead and make my straps also. I like to get all those little fiddly bits done ahead of time, and then I can just assemble. You do it however you want to though. If you want to do it exactly in the same order, everything's time stamped on here. So if you're like, oh, they start with darts, I'm going to start with darts. The dart will be time stamped, the pocket will be time stamped, the straps will be time stamped. So it will be easy for you to go according to the directions and still have this to follow along with. We're ready to press those, but I'm gonna wait because I'm gonna also have to press my straps. So I'm gonna find here's my little neck strap. It folds in half, and we're gonna sew straight down and then flip it through 5/8 of an inch. Make sure you backstitch. Okay, now this is ready to be flipped through, turned around. If you need to, trim off some of the excess seam allowance if it makes it easier. So we're going to flip these around, and be careful because this is fabric that will fray. You can easily fray out your edges, so we're just going to be careful of that. These are the things that if it takes you longer than 2 hours, it's these parts, the parts where you're just turning it through. The pocket, however, the way we did it actually makes the pocket faster. A lined pocket, even lining these straps would not add any extra time. And now we're going to start our ties. So we have 2 ties. We're going to take one, we're going to fold it in half long ways. We're going to stitch across the one short end and then all the way down. And then we'll flip it through, and we're going to do that for both of them. So let's go ahead and do our ties. I'm going to do a 3/8 inch seam allowance instead of a 5/8 to give myself a little bit wider tie. And you just have to make sure you have a wide enough opening at the side for the ties, which it has a wide opening already. Okay, so here's one tie. It's sewn shut at one end, it's open at the other. The lighting's going to be bad today. And then the end that's sewn shut, I'm going to trim the little corner. You could round these corners. You could make a little V end if you wanted to. Like, you could shape these corners pretty easily. I'm going to open this up and poke in, just push in with my fingers towards the inside. Growing up, we used a spoon handle. That's what I used. We would get a wooden spoon and use that. I have this nice little tool now. I'm putting the soft end of my tool up against it and then pulling down over it. You can see I have it kind of leaning against my body, and I'm just pulling down, and now getting a heavy storm. Can you see it wrinkling up? And then when I get to the other end, which is open, so there's the end of my tie. I'm going to grab a hold of that. I'm going to pull out my handle, and then the whole thing pulls around. Ta-da! So now that's ready to be ironed. So I have my straps done. I'm going to go ahead and do the other one, and then I'll meet you over at the ironing board, show you how I press everything, and then we'll come back and we'll start with the dart. Okay, we're going to iron our pockets now. And here's all my little straps ready to go. Now I'm going to be using the polka dot as most of my right side, with just a little peek of the floral. So I'm going to press this. I don't want to have any floral peeking through. So I'm going to make sure when I'm pressing this, and I can even turn it this way, I want to press it so that I have a little bit of the polka dot. I'm actually pushing the floral back just a tiny bit so that when I stitch this, I don't have any issues. So I'm just going to give it a good press. And I'm going to go around all my sides doing that, pushing this and making sure all my corners are nice and sharp. Now you could sew this with rounded corners, you could scallop it, you can get creative. I just want to make sure that I don't have any floral peeking through on that outer edge when I go to stitch it. Now the end that we pulled through will be our bottom edge, and we will sew it when we stitch this down. So here's my little opening. When I sew this down, when I come and sew this down to on the garment, it will also sew shut that little hole. So I'm not even going to worry about slip stitching it shut. Now on this one, this top edge, I'm fine with the floral coming over a little bit because this is the edge that's going to get folded over. So this is the one time where I don't mind if the floral shows. So now I can flip it over. And I can decide how much of that I want to come down. This little corner did not come out fully. I'm going to give him a little, I'm going to doctor that just a wee bit. If you have problems, it may need trimmed out. So I want to decide how much of that I want to show. And you can change this. Like I don't have to make the pocket exactly the way that they did. I can have it deep. I can have it narrow. Whatever's useful for me. And I'm going to press that down too. And there's one pocket. So I'm going to do that for both pockets. And that's how my little pocket's going to look. For our straps, we're going to, here's the neck strap. I'm going to make sure and get this seam. You don't want the seam to be folding in. You want that edge all the way out and flat. We're going to give it a press. Now, if you do not press as you sew, look at the difference between these. The accuracy when your garment is lumpy like this as opposed to crisp like this is going to be a lot different. So it's important to press as you go. Even if you don't ever press your garment again, press it while you're sewing. Straps in my cord all tangled. Okay, so there's my neck strap ready to go. And now we're going to press our ties. I have not fixed my ends here. So I've turned this around, but I have not pulled my ends out. So I'm going to just gently take a pin, get those. Ooh, did you hear that? My house actually just rattled. The weather's always dramatic here in Oklahoma. It's a bit of a drama queen. I know it is lots of places. We're not alone in that. All right, so now that I've got that kind of poked out, I can give it a press. Press that in to make it nice and flat. And then I'm going to do just like I did with the little neck strap. I'm going to make sure I don't have a fold in. See how it could fold in? It's not going to look as nice. You want to make sure that you pull that seam all the way out. If you need to stick a pin in there and pull it, I tend to just work it with my fingers into submission, but whatever it takes. And I'm just going to press and pull, get it nice and straight. And so here you can see, here's one that's been pressed. Here's the same strap not pressed. And you can tell you're going to get a lot more accuracy with this than with this. And it's just going to look nicer when you're done too. Okay, so as I was ironing this, I thought, you know what would really be cute? Would be a little button on this flap. Okay, so yeah, that's a giant button, but I'm thinking about sewing that on. I'm going to use an embroidery thread. You can see how big the holes are on that. I also have, this is the other option, which is also very cute, but does not show up as well. If it were on the polka dot, it shows up really well, which is why I'm tempted to go with these huge ones that I'm not using and are just hanging out in my stash. I think I will. It's kitsch, it's cute. I think I'm gonna go with it. It's just an apron. We have everything ironed. Pockets are made. I went ahead and sewed on a giant button to the front. I used embroidery floss. I actually had sashiko thread, which is what I used, but it's a nice thick, heavy thread because the holes are so giant. It needs a heavier thread to look right. When you have big, giant holes like that, I considered even putting a second button on top, and I might come in and do another button that fills that hole and have a stacked button. I don't know yet, but I'm considering it. So those are done. 2 cute pockets. I have all of my straps done. I've got my dart pinned, and I'm going to go ahead and just sew in both darts and press them, and then we will move on to side seams. This is now going to go very quick because we've done all the prep work. If you've never done a dart before, I'll put the little title card up here and it will be linked below. I have a video that's just on doing darts. So I have 1 dart in. Come around and do this side. This is a slightly shaped dart. It's got a little bit of roundness or fullness to it. If you need to, draw those legs right on here and you can follow the line that you drew instead of trying to just go from dot to dot. Okay, these are ready to be pressed, and you can see by the way the dart is shaped, they're pressed down and it lines up. So I'm going to press both of those darts, and then we're going to sew on our pockets, I think. Let me give these a quick press and we'll do that. Pockets, I have little marks when I showed you transferring your markings. So we're going to find those. Now I shortened my pocket from their original by quite a bit because I made a deeper, I folded mine over more. I made a shorter pocket, which I actually prefer. So I have little marks at the, I have to decide, do I want it lower or higher? I'm going to go higher because it's more practical and easier to use. I'm going to put some pins in it to hold it in place. And remember, we want to, since I lined my pocket, if you didn't line the pocket, then you're doing the folding it all under and top stitching it down. I'm trying to decide, do I want my flap free or do I want it stitched down? I think I want my flap free. So I'm actually going to flip up my flap and pin underneath it. Ah, that's what I want. That is what I want. I have made a decision. And remember, when we sew our pocket on, we will also be sealing that bottom little hole where we turned it through. Okay, let's sew on a pocket. So here's the first one on, the thread underneath. We're coming right up here to this flap. I'm lifting the flap up and getting as close as I can to it. Don't want to catch the fold. Using my foot to help me keep it nice and straight and measure. This is my 1/4 inch foot. The inside gives me an 1/8. When I get to the corner, I'm going to sink and turn. The needle position, sinking the needle keeps it from sliding, makes it stay on target. Sink and turn. Now on this side I can see a little bit of my lining peeking through, so I'm going to take a few pins. I'm going to make sure that that does not happen by pushing the lining under, sticking a pin in it. And as I come up here to the flap, this pin is where I want to stop. Get some good back stitching in so my pocket's nice and secure. And there it is sewn on, and the flap is free, but you can see the top stitching on it. I have not trimmed my threads, but I have 2 little cute pockets. The flaps are free. They've got little buttons on it. So what I'm going to do next is serge down my side seams front and back independently so that I can sew that side seam and press it open. So I'm going to do a quick serge on everything. we're all serged. And I'm just going to cut everything apart. And we're going to now line everything up on side seams and just sew our 5/8 inch side seams. I have my little markings here so I know where to start and stop for the little opening for our ties. So we're going to put right sides together. We're sewing 5/8 of an inch. Put a few clips or pins in it. So I'm going to pin at each end, the top and the bottom. I always do this on long seams. And then I'm going to come down and make sure everything's flat, and then I'm going to pin at my circles. Pinned. We're just going to sew 5/8 of an inch. I'm going to go ahead and pin the other one though. So what I'm going to do, I've got my two dots. I'm going to start up here, sew 5/8 of an inch. I'm back stitching. I'm going to sew till I hit that first dart, back stitch, lift up, go to the next dart, back stitch or next dot, and start there. So there will be a hole in my stitching where those little dots are. Doing our 5/8 inch seams, a side seam. Here's my first red dot. I'm going to hit the red dot. I'm going to back stitch a few stitches. This gets a lot of pull. This is where the little ties come through, so we want to make sure it's nice and secure. Now I'm going to lift up and go to the next dot. Make sure my everything's lined up here. And back stitch right there at that dot. Sew our way on down. Make sure this is the part where the dart is, that your dart doesn't flip. All right, and we have got a side seam here, and it has a little hole for our tie to come through. So that's one. I'm going to go ahead and do the next one, and then we're going to press it. Okay, let's head over and press open this seam and start pressing our hems down. We've got our side seams together now with little hole for our ties. Okay, let's go press. Okay, we're ready to press our side seams. I'm using a pressing stick. This is a little half circle stick that has ironing board padding on it, and it's one of my favorite kind of little tools to use for something like this where I don't want this stitching to demarcate on the outside. Now, it's not going to be as big of a deal on a fabric like this. This kind of fabric actually really takes pressing well, but if you have something really delicate, a pressing stick helps this fall away and you won't get a line pressed through. So I'm going to just show you. Here's where I've pressed. Here's where I haven't pressed. Pressed seam, non-pressed seam. It looks so different to and makes such a difference in your seam. It almost disappears where it's been pressed. So we're just going to press open our side seams right here. I've actually managed to press in a little hole there, but we'll give him a shot of steam and take care of that. And because I have the pressing stick, I can press from either side if your fabric will tolerate it. So we're just going to, and I'm going to go ahead and press everything real quick while I'm here, just get rid of any wrinkles. I'm going to trim all my threads off real quick too, and then we're going to start folding up all of those little hem lines all the way around. And oh yeah, that looks so good. And we'll be putting in those hems, and then we'll attach all of our straps and it'll be done. Okay, so the directions for number 3 say, finish outer edges of your dresser top with 5/8 inch narrow hems. This does not give a lot of direction at all, actually. So what we are going to do is, I'm going to flip this over to the wrong side, and I'm going to all the way around press up 1/4 of an inch and stitch it. So we're pressing up 1/4 of an inch like this all the way around the garment. And then we're going to stitch that in, and then we'll come back and we'll press up 3/8 of an inch and we'll stitch that in. So it'll have double stitching, but it will only be shown on the inside. The outside only shows single row of stitching. Because there's so much bias right here in the back where it's curvy, it just turns just fine and presses. So you can see how that looks. And so we're going to stitch this in. So I'm going to press all the way around, including the hemline, the entire garment, stitch this in, and then I'll meet you back here to do another turn, another press, and another stitch. All right, we're just going around and stitching our first row of hemming. I'm using my little 1/4 inch line here, or the edge of my 1/4 inch foot, just barely catching. I'm going to just keep doing this all the way around the entire garment. Okay, we're going to start top stitching. I will tell you, if you want to catch your strap in this, you can while you're doing your top stitching, or you can go back and add it later. I'm going to top stitch around and then come and add the strap in. I will line up my stitching though to keep it nice and neat, so it looks it doesn't look added on or messy. That's always a concern. You have to be careful when you first start where there's a thick corner like this one. Sometimes the machine will not want to move. You can see how it's not moving very well. So I am making sure to hang on to this back here. And sometimes it's actually hitting my walking foot back there, and that's why it's not moving. Now I have turned back 3/8 of an inch. If you've done this, if you've turned it back correctly, here's my, you can see my stitching there. I have turned back 3/8, so when I stitch at the 1/4, it's catching right next to my edge, and it'll look nice and neat. So on the back side, you'll have 2 rows of stitching, but on the front side, you'll only have 1. I'm going to go all the way around, and I'll meet you back here in a bit. Snippy snip. We are completely hemmed all the way around. What I'm going to do now is get my little straps. So all of my straps have raw edges, and there are a couple of things we can do to finish those edges. One is to fold twice and stitch, which is not going to be my choice for this because it's bulky, and we're already going to be laying it over something that's folded twice and stitched. You can serge those edges if you want to. You have to make sure you do something to seal the ends of your serging so that it stays serged and it doesn't start unraveling. And you can just open this up and tuck those raw edges to the inside, which is what I'm going to do. Remember, the neck is at an angle. We want to keep that angle. That helps with the shaping of the, so that this stays nice. So we want to make sure when we flip those to the inside, just turning in about 1/4 inch. When you try this on, you may see that you need to lengthen or shorten this strap around the neck. And if that's the case, trim off what you need to and then fold that back underneath. The other thing you could do is you could slip an elastic inside here, leave it the length that it is, and then let the elastic do the pulling. But you can see it's not very long. Not very long at all. Usually they're too big on me, but I don't think this one's going to be. Okay, we're taking our raw edges of our straps and we're tucking them to the inside about 1/4 inch and stitching them down. I'm literally just poking them in with my fingers. I did the first 3 without the camera with ease. I turn the camera on and suddenly it gets hard. There we go. We're just going to tuck that down. I'm going to get a pin here. I use the pin to the inside to neaten it up, make it smooth. Make sure we don't have any little pokes. This one's kind of lumpy right there. Okay, and then we're going to put a pin in it. We're going to stitch them down. So these are my ties. This is my neckline. You can see it's angled. We want to keep those angles. So we're just going to do a little tiny stitch to hold that together, and then we're going to apply it to our garment. All right, I'm just going to stitch along this edge to hold it. You could press it too if you need to. I'm literally stitching right along that edge line, so like 1/8 inch or so. Just keeping it together. All right, so now we're ready to attach these. And if you look at your directions, I'm going to pull my directions back out, which are pretty scant. There's not a lot of directions here. One, you're going to just sew. The 2 side seams get sewn all the way out on the outer edges, and the neckline gets attached at the top. So let me show you. Here's our side seam. We're going to put our little belts. I always put the seam part where it's folded in half on the bottom. So these are going to get sewn right up here. So I'm just going to pin that on. And then I'm going to stitch back in my old stitching line. So you just want to make sure you pin past that stitching line to pin this, to stitch it on so it looks nice and neat. So I'm going to pin that one, turning the seam down. Here's our side. So you can see that's the shape. It's going to go way over here in this corner. Now, if you had finished this seam first on these ties, you could have sewn this in when you were top stitching, the last top stitching. Could have pinned this in and caught it all at once. I'm pinning all of these at once, and then I'm going to come back and stitch them. And then we're going to get our neckline. And you want, here's our angle. This longest part of the angle will be on the outside. I have a feeling this is going to be kind of short of a neckline for me, which is not common. Usually they're too long. And that gives us the shape. Yeah. Okay, so we're going to just top stitch all of these in, and it will be done. I'm going to give it a press though. Make sure you back stitch. We want those nice and sturdy. Okay, you can see I'm pinning on my strap. I'm making sure that the edge of my strap is right about where this point is where I turned. I'm making sure it's just going to get caught just below my stitching line. Getting it all lined up perfectly and pinning it now. You could pin this on first and make sure that it's the right length for you before you stitch it. That would be very wise. I am lining up in my old stitching line, stitching right where I stitched before. And that is the neckline one in. give it a haircut here. And from the back, you can see here's my little angle where it's caught. And we have one neckline on. We're going to do the same thing here on our little sides. I'm going to give it a haircut. I am going to give it a press. And we'll go see how it looks on the body. Now remember, I'm wearing this as an apron, not as a shirt or a dress. I have a completely done little apron. Yep, it's gonna be great. Okay, I'm gonna go give it a press. I'll meet you over there. We'll see how it looks on. Okay, so let's put this thing on. I'm gonna stick my glasses up here. To put on, if you've never worn a wrap thing like this before, you're gonna take the tie on the right, put it behind your back, and pull it through the hole on the left. So I'm gonna find my little hole on my side seam. Here it is. Pull my tie through that. And now the other side will wrap around. And now we can tie it however we want. Now remember, I'm wearing this like an apron. The pattern says you can wear it like a top or a dress. I did add a little to the hip to make sure I didn't pull funky. So here it is in the back. It could be very easy to add another pocket up here if you'd or one pocket up here and none down here. These are really cute though. I did shorten the pocket. The pocket was longer, but I did this little fold over thing. So here it is. Yeah, I will be wearing this. I have a feeling I'll be canning in it. I was worried about this being too wide, and it is. You can just see how it doesn't lay real flat. It's fine for an apron. If it were a top, I would be doing some changes. I'm going to tighten it up a wee bit. Now, depending on your straps, you may be able to wrap it and do it in the back. Depending on how large you are and how long you made the strap. If you like to wrap and tie in the back, make sure you lengthen your strap. Yeah, a little gappy up here. If you were wearing this as a top, that might be an issue. I would definitely, if I were going to make this as a dress or a top, I would make the top, I would go down, this is the large, I would go down to a medium up here and leave the large on the bottom. Size out. So this would fit better, but I would cut the strap the large length because it couldn't be any shorter. Okay, pretty cute little apron. I do like it. Of course, if you went with a heavier weight fabric like a denim or lightweight denim, something like that would work great too. Please leave a comment. What are you listening to while you're sewing? Have you made this or something similar to it? Have you made one of the others that I've listed? Do you wear it as a dress or do you wear it as an apron? Do you even wear aprons? Am I the only one left that still wears aprons? I have questions. Well, thanks for sewing with me. I'll see you next week for another fun video.